February 25th, 2511. My God, they detonated a nuclear device at Haven. Preliminary radiological analysis indicates the bomb was spiked to disperse toxic materials high into the atmosphere. Millions dead. Millions more projected to die from the fallout. Countless birth defects for generations to come. The Freedom and Liberation Party has claimed responsibility, demanding the CMA withdraw from the Iranda sector. How could they commit such an atrocity, and against those who were supposedly their allies? They are insane. They must be stopped. I have to stop this. Intersystem news. Haven terror bombing kills 2 million. Manassas, Alfold, August 21st, 2511, /NZ. A terrorist suicide bomber loaded a commercial nuclear explosive, commonly used in asteroid mining, and several thousand pounds of scrap cadmium into the back of a rental truck, and then detonated it inside the promenade of the Haven Arcology on the moor. This is the third major terror attack this month in the Mato Grosso province of Mamor, but the first ever of this magnitude. The explosion, which destroyed nearly a quarter of the structure above ground, causing the arcology to collapse, killed an estimated 2 million residents, injured over 8.3 million others, devastated nearly 500,000 hectares of outlying farmland, and was felt over 140 kilometers away from the blast zone. Also sent a plume of radioactive debris high into the atmosphere. The Freedom and Liberation Party terrorist group claimed responsibility for the attack. Mamor's new head of Foreign Affairs and Security, Gilbert Ruiz, expressed shock and outrage over the brutal attack, stating that this unforgivable cowardly act of violence proves yet again that this group wants neither freedom nor liberation. They desire only to viciously murder those with whom they disagree. UNSC emergency response teams are presently organising rescue, quarantine and evacuation efforts. UNSC High Command on Reach has failed to respond to all requests regarding investigation of the individuals responsible for this attack, or the Freedom and Liberation Party. This one is a simple entry with its associated news clipping. It demonstrates the severity of the insurrection at this point, given that the individuals following the Freedom and Liberation Party were willing to use commercial-grade nuclear devices laced with cadmium, an extremely toxic industrial and environmental pollutant classified as a human carcinogen. This only incentivized Catherine to want to put an end to the bloodshed, and she likely accelerated her research as a consequence because her next diary entry doesn't take place for over 2 months. The more interesting part of this entry is actually found on the news clipping, particularly in the last paragraph where it says UNSC emergency response teams are presently organising rescue, quarantine and evacuation efforts. UNSC High Command on Reach has failed to respond to all requests regarding investigation of the individuals responsible for this attack or the Freedom and Liberation Party. Let's just put that into context a second. The nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined killed up to 226,000 people, half of which died on the first day, the rest from acute effects of the bomb's fallout thereafter, and there have been birth defects ever since. Less than 250,000 people died as a consequence to the two most memorable nuclear bombings in our recent history, yet the nuke detonated in New Haven killed 2 million people. That makes this particular attack's death toll over 8 times more than both Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. That begins to drive home the severity of this attack, and yet the final sentence states that UNSC High Command haven't even responded to requests of investigation of the perpetrators. This is a death toll of 2 million people. That's either the entire population of Perth, Western Australia, or half of the population of Los Angeles. And yet UNSC High Command haven't even responded formally to the attack. This is both an indication of how far removed High Command are from the actual day-to-day running of the colonies, but also a meter stick to what is and is not classed as acceptable loss of life in this era, with High Command likely seeing the death of 2 million to be trivial and below their level of administrative interest, instead leaving it to colonial-level government. Yet, quite rightly, the colonial government have looked to High Command for assistance given the scale of the incident, and that in practically all other senses, the UNSC and the UEG want influence and active control over any situation. With this duality, it's hardly surprising that there is unrest and a desire to supersede from the UEG in many of the outer colonies. It is unsettling to imagine this, to say the least.